Welcome to the third and final installment of my three-part series on intermodal transport by rail. In this segment, I will discuss alternative intermodal services, as well as the industry today and differences between Canada and the US. Another development that happened in the intermodal industry is we had some options come in to its own. One was the road railer service, which was pioneered by a couple of early railways, mostly in the United States. But really, the only one you see today is the Triple Crown service, and so it's run by the Norfolk Southern Railway. And basically, it services mostly the eastern part, but it reaches as far west like as down as far as Dallas, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, up into the northeast and even into Canada and into Toronto. Now, what they did is originally they had licensed with Canadian Pacific to do that, and then CN eventually took that over. And you can see here this example. Here's a Triple Crown train moving just near Milton, Ontario. Now, the interesting thing, as you can see, is the advantage of the Triple Crown is the equipment is very limited. You don't have to have trailers on flat cars or containers on flat cars. It's virtually trailers running on bogies or railway wheels directly on the railway. So it's fairly much more simplistic way of running. Now, mind you, the trailers have to be specifically designed, and there are weight limitations on the trailers because of the additional weight of the bogies when they are lowered in the train. But the nice thing is the terminals are very simple, where they unload and unload the trailers from the wheels and that. So it's a much more, like I said, simplistic. But it's also the fact it's specialized is the reason why there are a limited number of terminals in the United States and only one currently in Canada. Now, another development that came along was it was originally actually developed by, I believe, by CSX Transportation, but they didn't make a go of it. So Canadian Pacific saw use for it up here in Canada, and they referred to it originally in its inception in 1996 as the Iron Highway. So basically, what that was it was very similar to the old piggyback circus style loading trailers on flat cars, and but they had specific terminals they serviced. Originally, the service was between Montreal, Toronto, and Windsor, with that service being cut back to just between Toronto and Montreal. And eventually, that service evolved into what was referred to as the CP Expressway, and the Toronto terminal is actually west of Toronto, is near Milton, Ontario. And so here's a shot here. The train is just leaving the Milton terminal and heading towards Montreal. And the other unique thing about it is it's a very different kind of intermodal. It wasn't your traditional intermodal. So Canadian Pacific supplied the motive power and the flat cars, but the actual trailers were not really designed for the traditional customer. They were more used, as you can see in this picture, by major retailers in some cases. So the Bay Zellers no longer around, of course, but and Sears. Canadian Tire was, I believe, a major participant as well. But also major trucking companies. So what the trucking companies saw as an advantage was, especially with driver shortages, is they could load their trailers up on this train and they can move them between Toronto and Montreal, so virtually saving that leg. And as a motorist, and that it was a big advantage to us because it basically took 100 trailers every day off of the 401. Unfortunately, this service was deemed not feasible anymore by the Canadian Pacific to run, and they discontinued it in 2018. My last topic on intermodal transportation is the kind of where it's at today and the differences between Canada and the U.S. As I mentioned, it's been become a major part of the major railways in both Canada and the U.S. as a percentage of freight traffic, but it's also changed quite a bit. So in Canada, the only type of transport you see these days is container on flat car. Trailer on flat car is no longer existent. Both CN and CP got out of that business a number of years ago. They really saw it as not being feasible. The double stack, as much as possible, is was the way to go. and they just saw that as a big business decision, and so you no longer see trailers on flat cars. Now in the U.S., as you can see in this shot, you can see they still very much use both. However, the trailer on flat car has diminished significantly in size and percentage compared to the container traffic. And the other thing that has happened is the traditional guys have actually taken a bit of a lead on this. You see it here in the picture. There's a JB Hunt trailer or container on a flat, but anyway, it's a trailer on flat car. And then you can see quite a few JB Hunt containers on flat car, which they never used to have. And JB Hunt was one of the original, if not the original pioneer of doing intermodal transport between them and the railways in the United States. Another early pioneer, as I showed earlier in the video with my model, is Schneider. And Schneider also only used to put trailers on flat cars. Now they have quite a large fleet of containers. So it'd be interesting to see in the next number of years if that gets phased out. Now the only thing working against that, I would say, is in the US they also have these trains which are dedicated to UPS and FedEx. And what they are is they are referred to as Z trains. Now, intermodal trains in general are now, in most cases, the number one priority train on the railway. This used to be passenger trains at one time, which is no longer the case. Basically, with the odd exception, railways have divulged themselves of passenger trains. They found that they wanted to focus on the freight side or the more profitable side of the business as passenger service declined due to highways and air travel increasing. The federal governments of both the United States and Canada stepped in and took over the passenger services. In Canada, Via Rail Canada was formed. Originally, it was a subsidiary of CN Rail, which eventually became the Crown Corporation Via Rail. And in the U.S., Amtrak was formed. But intermodal has become it's the priority freight. They typically run at higher speeds usually, and so they'll get priority or what you call general mixed freight trains. A lot of the bulk unit trains, coal, potash, and that sort of thing. Now the Z trains even have priority over the standard intermodal trains. And the reason being is that UPS and FedEx they put a lot of demand on the U.S. railroads. You don't see those in Canada, of course, and that's why no reason why we don't have trailer and flat car anymore. But they are fairly common in the U.S. So that concludes the third and final segment on intermodal transport by rail. Thank you for watching another video in my Railways in a Nutshell series focused on educating people on railway subject matter. If you like this video and are interested in seeing more of this type of content, please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have suggestions for other railway topics, feel free to send them to me.